Hello, everybody. We're very happy to have with us today Mr. Benoît Coeuré, who is now the head of the BIS Innovation Hub. And we're very happy to have you with us, Mr. Coeuré. And I know that you're going to tell us quite a bit about the activities of the BIS Innovation Hub, and maybe we can extend that towards meanings for the Greek banking system and the Greek society in general. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Sakellaris, and thank you for inviting me to the Delphi Economic Forum. I'm very sorry that I have to join remotely from Basel, Switzerland, and I cannot be with you in Athens. To illustrate the importance of innovation for the official community, particularly for central banks, I would like to connect two of the emerging priorities for the central banking community. First priority is innovation, and the second priority is green finance, which is everywhere around us and rising very fast to the top of central banks' agenda and priorities. And let me start to state the obvious, which is that of course central banks alone cannot solve the climate crisis. Governments should be taking the lead in the global response to the climate crisis. But there is also an increasing and shared awareness of the importance of the action by all economic players, starting with the private sector, of course. The amount of money is simply too large, and we need the insight and innovation of the private sector. But the public sector needs to step in to coordinate efforts and to ensure consistency. And that's where central banks come in. And indeed, we've seen central banks recently increasingly seeing scope in their mandates to adjust their operational frameworks to reflect climate-related risks, to accept that financial risks arising from climate change, either through physical and also through transition risks, should be considered in their activities. And around the globe, central banks have been starting to green their assets, to discuss the potential scope of new instruments, macroprudential instruments, even maybe monetary policy instruments, in the response to the climate crisis. And I guess a common feature to all these initiatives is a sense of urgency, because the climate crisis is of us. And if you want to front load the impact of what central banks are doing, if you want to coordinate a very large number of players across the public sector and across the private sector, technology can help. And that's where the BIS Innovation Hub comes in. So let me take a step back and say a few words about what we are doing in Basel. The Innovation Hub of the Bank for International Settlement was established in 2019 in support of central bank action on digital innovation. We have currently 3 centers, one in Hong Kong, together with the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, one in Singapore with the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and one in Switzerland with the Swiss National Bank. We've just launched a strategic partnership with the New York Fed in New York, and we are about to open 4 new centers in Toronto, in London, in Stockholm, and in Frankfurt and Paris. And so you see that we have a global reach, and we also want to cover a broad scope. We have identified 6 key themes to organize our work: subtech and regtech, next generation financial market infrastructures, central bank digital currency, which is all the rage around us, as we know, and we want to help that reflection, open finance, cybersecurity, and last but not least, green finance. And what we do is to build and produce proofs of concept, prototypes that can be of practical help, and that can answer practical problem statements that central banks and regulators globally are raising to us. So what can we do on green finance? Let me give you a first example. Last year in 2020, we co-hosted the first edition of what we call the G20 Tech Sprint, which is a hackathon, a competition, global competition addressed to fintechs and other technology providers across the globe. Last year was in support to the Saudi presidency of the G20, and that was about technology in support of supervision and regulatory compliance, so RegTech and SubTech. And this year we are teaming up with the Banca d'Italia in its capacity as a G20 chair, and we are addressing issues in the field of green and sustainable finance. And so that was launched last week, and we have 3 problem statements that has been identified through a consultation of all G20 countries. First problem statement is about data collection, verification, and sharing in the field of green finance. Second problem statement is in the field of analysis and assessment of transition and physical climate-related risks. And the third problem statement is about connecting projects and investors. There are lots of technological solutions around which regulators and central banks are not necessarily aware of, and we want to connect the technological side and the business side of it. So I'm being very short here, and I'm happy to dig deeper into all these issues. And why have we selected data and information as a key priority? Because we believe that data and information availability is a major impediment to addressing climate change. There are lots of standards and disclosure frameworks for corporate sustainability and for climate-related issues. There are different definitions, different taxonomies. The EU taxonomy is an important one, but it's not the only one in the world. And that makes it difficult to compare climate-related green and sustainability information. It makes it difficult to collect information, and it makes it difficult to process information. And here technology can help. Mm-hmm. So that's the first example. And this, importantly, this is not only about financial market information. This is also about information coming from the real world, from the physical world. So upstream, up the value chains and the carbon chains. So there are issues such as, can the Internet of Things help us connect remote sensing devices and satellites to better measure the carbon footprint? How can we process and ship that information down the value chain up to the point where firms are raising capital on capital markets? And how can that information be audited, verified, so that investors and consumers have access to trusted information on the carbon footprint? So you see that's not only about financial markets; it also extends to the whole industrial value chain. And that's what makes it really fascinating. There are a number of other projects that we have in the field of green finance, and I'm being short here. Early June, we'll have a global conference together with the Banque de France, with the IMF, and with the Network on Greening the Financial System, which we call the Green Swan Conference. And that's about how the financial sector can take action against climate change related risks. We have Nobel Prizes and economists and representatives of the industry coming to discuss it. We also have created what we call the BIS Innovation Network, which is open to all 63 members of the BIS. And we have there a Green Finance Working Group, which is chaired by the Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Ireland, Sharon Donnery, to share experiences and to identify technological solutions to common problem statements in green finance. And that's a very broad membership, including emerging market economies and different continents. And finally, we have one practical prototype and proof of concept related to green finance. It's a very exciting project in our Hong Kong center, and it's about developing a prototype to introduce green bonds, tokenized green bonds, in small denominations that would give retail investors access to the green bond concept. And we look at ways to integrate the real-time tracking and disclosure of the green output of the projects underlying the green bond, and bring them to push this information to retail investors, so that when they've bought the green bond, they can know, say on a mobile phone app, what the green output, how much carbon has been saved through their investment. And that's a prototype we are developing in our center. So I guess the conclusion here is that we strongly believe that technology can help front-load the benefits of the green finance initiatives, and that the official community, particularly central banks, have to be part of it. And I stop here, Ploutarchos.
Okay, well, very, very interesting work that the Innovation Hub is doing. Thank you very much, Mr. Coeuré, for telling us. So basically, some of the main themes that you've put on the table here are also themes that we will be pursuing with the next two speakers that we have. Of course, you mentioned more things than that. So one is the innovation in the use of technology in the world of finance and in the world of banking and outside banking. And secondly, finance to adapt and promote the fight against climate change. So what I got out of this is that what you're doing in your Innovation Hub is not just something that will be applicable for central banks, which is basically what BIS is meant for, but it's actually going to be a public good that will serve the purposes of banks, of non-financial corporations, but even of consumers and investors. And I think that's extremely interesting. And then this issue of green bonds is actually something that, of course, is going to benefit not only banks, but also non-financial corporations. Any other things, unfortunately, we're getting towards the end of our time. Any other things that you would like to mention in terms of the work that you do, and also in terms of important priorities that you see ahead for your Innovation Hub?
No, I think there is one single thread across everything we're doing, which is that technology is around us, and central banks and financial regulators, bank supervisors, have to embrace technology so that they can keep ahead of the curve. Mm-hmm. We are seeing a very fast change in the financial industry, with non-bank players coming in, big tech also trying to come in and disrupt and dislodge banks from their established positions. You need the whole financial system, including the incumbent banks, to embrace innovation so that they can stay in the race. And you also need regulators to be on top of it so that they understand what's going on, and also so that they can prepare for the regulation of these new emerging activities. So that's very much what we are committed to.
Okay, well,
from Basel, but servicing the whole central banking community.
Well, that's important. It's from Basel, but it's actually going to be something that will help us all around here. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Coeuré. This was extremely useful for us. Thank you very much for participating, and hoping that next year we'll be able to have you here with us in Greece, and hopefully in Delphi rather than in Athens. So once again, we appreciate your participation, and have a very good day.
Thank you very much, and see you in Delphi next year.
Yes, thank you.